They slapped me in the middle of the family party, and while my ears were still ringing, I opened my phone and hit the lock button not on my account, but on theirs. They thought I was broke. They didn't know I was holding the keys to their own vault. My sister laughed. Finally. And I smiled because yes, finally, indeed. That night, I stopped being the good daughter who knows her place and became the silent creditor signing the foreclosure order. My name is Harper Quinn, and I've always been the one who pays. The Copper and Ivy restaurant hummed with its usual Saturday night energy, exposed brick walls glowing amber under Edison bulbs, the scent of burnt butter mixing with overpriced cologne. I sat at the table's edge, my chair practically kissing the swinging kitchen door. Every time a server rushed past, I had to pull my purse closer. "Harper's fine there," my mother Valerie announced when the hostess offered to adjust our seating. "She doesn't mind." 18 years of practice had taught me not to argue. I watched my half-sister Sloane hold court at the table's center, her acceptance letter to CU Boulder the excuse for tonight's family celebration. Her boyfriend Evan kept taking photos while her friends shrieked over appetizers I knew would land on my card. "Order whatever you want," I heard myself say. The words automatic as breathing. Greg, my stepfather, was already on his third bourbon, regaling Sloane's friends with stories about his latest business venture code for another pyramid scheme that would need my bailout by month's end. The plates kept coming. Lobster risotto, ribeye, bottles of wine I recognized from the expensive section. My mental calculator ran continuously 800, 850, 900. When dessert arrived, some architectural thing involving gold leaf, I excused myself to the bathroom and checked my credit limit. Plenty of room. There always was, because I always planned for them. "Check, please," Greg called out magnanimously when I returned, as if he'd ever paid for anything in his life. The server, a young woman with tired eyes I recognized, placed the leather folder in front of him. He made a show of examining it before sliding it to me with practiced smoothness. "You got this, right, Harper? Since it's Sloane's special night, $920, plus tip." I handed over my card without comment. The server returned 3 minutes later, shifting nervously. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but the card was declined." The table went silent. Sloane's friends exchanged glances. My stomach dropped not from embarrassment, but from a cold certainty. My credit was perfect. My limit was high. This wasn't possible unless declined. Greg stood, his voice carrying across the restaurant. "Harper, what the hell? There must be a mistake. Try." The slap came before I could finish. His palm connected with my cheek hard enough to knock my glasses askew. The sound cracked through the restaurant like a gunshot. Forks stopped moving. Conversations died. "You embarrass us like this." His breath stank of bourbon and rage. "After everything we've done for you." My ear rang. The left side of my face burned. Through the haze, I heard Sloane's laugh, bright and cruel. "Finally," she said. "Someone finally put her in her place, acting all high and mighty with her fancy job while making us look like beggars." No one at the table defended me. Valerie examined her manicure. The server backed away, horrified. I saw 2 phones pointed our direction, recording. With movements that felt underwater slow, I pulled out my backup card, the one I'd hidden from them for years. The transaction went through immediately. "Add 40% tip," I told the server quietly. "For the trouble." I stood, gathered my purse, and walked toward the door. Behind me, Greg muttered about ungrateful daughters. Valerie comforted Sloane about her ruined celebration. Their voices faded as I pushed into the Denver night, the mountain air sharp against my burning cheek. In my car, I opened my banking app with trembling fingers. There it was, a notification from 3 days ago I'd somehow missed. Authorized user added to account. Greg had used the SSN he'd borrowed for taxes, the card photos he'd needed for emergencies, to add himself to my credit line. The declined card wasn't maxed out. It was drained. $8,000 in cash advances over 72 hours. I sat there in the parking lot, engine running, watching their silhouettes through the restaurant window. They were laughing now, toasting, the incident already forgotten. I opened my laptop, logged into my bank, and started the process of freezing everything. No more automatic transfers for their rent. No more emergency bailouts. No more. The slap still burned on my cheek, but something else burned hotter, the last flame of whatever love I'd pretended to feel finally going out. They'd just made their last withdrawal from the bank of Harper Quinn. The laptop screen glowed in my dark studio apartment at 243A. I'd been building the spreadsheet for 3 hours, but really, I'd been building it for 12 years. The ledger. I'd named it. Every row a transaction, every column a broken promise. March 2013, $200, Mom's emergency root canal that turned into veneers. July 2013, $500, Greg's investment opportunity in his friend's food truck. December 2013, $2,800, Sloane's Christmas necessities, including an iPhone she broke within a month. My fingers moved mechanically, pulling data from old bank statements, credit card records, Venmo histories. The number at the bottom kept climbing $47,000, $73,000, $90,000. I remember the day it started. Dad had been gone 6 months when Greg Hartley appeared at Mom's book club, all silver fox charm and calculated attention. Within weeks, he'd moved in. Within months, he'd identified me the responsible one with the college degree and steady job as the family ATM. "Harper's so smart with money," he'd say at family dinners, refilling my wine glass. "She understands investment. This opportunity I found. She gets why it's golden." The opportunities were never golden. The medical emergencies were never emergencies, but the pattern was always the same. Family helps family. Blood is thicker than water. You don't understand because you don't have kids. When you're older, you'll appreciate what we've done for you. $500-600, Sloane's braces, paid in cash to a specialist who gave Greg a kickback. $8,200, 3 months of their rent when Greg was between opportunities. $4,100, Mom's chronic fatigue syndrome treatments not covered by insurance. The treatments were spa days. I found the receipts last Christmas, tucked in Mom's purse while she was drunk on wine I'd paid for. By 4:15 I'd documented everything I could prove, $121, $746 over 12 years. That didn't include the groceries, the dinners, the quick loans of 20 here, 50 there. It didn't include the Christmas gifts that were never reciprocated, the birthday parties I funded but wasn't quite welcome at, the vacation they took using my points while I worked overtime to cover their emergency that month. A new email notification popped up. Credit monitoring alert. New account opened. My blood went cold. I clicked through to find a Macy's card, a Target card, and something called Quick Cash Advance, all opened in the last week under my SSN. The applications showed my mother's phone number as contact. I pulled up more records. There it was. 2 years ago, Greg had claimed me as a dependent on his taxes to increase his refund. I'd been living on my own for over a decade, paying my own bills, paying their bills, but somehow I was his dependent. The IRS letters I'd been ignoring suddenly made sense. Another memory surfaced. Greg asking to see my driver's license and credit cards for the family emergency contact list. Mom taking photos of my documents, in case something happens to you. Honey. The times they'd needed my SSN for insurance purposes or to add you as an emergency contact at the bank. They'd been building to this for years. I switched tabs to my email and searched for key terms. Hundreds of messages appeared, their requests always in writing. My agreement always documented. Just this once. Harper. We'll pay you back next month. Harper. Family emergency. Harper. The word family appeared 847 times in our correspondence. My phone buzzed. Mom. Your father is having chest pains. We're at the ER. They need $2,000 for tests. Insurance won't cover. Please send immediately. It was 5:22 a.m. Greg's chest pains usually coincided with casino weekends. I didn't respond. Instead, I created a new folder, evidence. Every email went in, every screenshot, every receipt I'd kept out of some insane hope they'd someday pay me back. Then I saw an auto loan inquiry from 3 days ago. They'd tried to refinance my car using forged signatures. The loan officer had flagged it as suspicious. Notes in the system showing applicant seemed confused about vehicle details, provided inconsistent information. My Nissan, the one thing I'd protected, kept in my name only, paid off early. They'd tried to steal that too. The sun was rising over Denver, painting the mountains pink. I made coffee and opened a new document. This one wasn't a spreadsheet. It was a timeline. Every pattern of behavior, every escalation, every boundary crossed. The ledger showed what they'd taken. The timeline would show how they'd done it. And somewhere in Denver, 3 people were waking up to their last day of treating me like a bank. $121, $746, plus interest, plus damages. They should have stopped at dinner. The law office of Amira Delgado occupied a corner suite in downtown Denver, all glass and clean lines against the mountain backdrop. She was in her 50s, silver-streaked hair pulled back, eyes that had seen every variation of financial abuse Denver County could produce. "Family identity theft," she said, reviewing my documentation, "is the hardest to prosecute and the easiest to prove. Contradictory, isn't it?" I'd brought everything the ledger printed and bound, the evidence folder on a USB drive, screenshots backed up in triple. She flipped through pages, occasionally making notes in margins. "The slap," she said suddenly. "You have video?" "At least 2 people were recording. The restaurant will have security footage." "Good. Battery charges make judges pay attention. Now, let's discuss your 3-layer approach." She pulled out a legal pad, drew 3 columns. Layer 1 credit protection. We freeze everything today. Not just your credit, we're putting 7-year fraud alerts on your file, disputing every unauthorized account, and sending debt validation letters to every creditor they've touched. Colorado law gives us 15 days for response. Her pen moved to the 2nd column. Layer 2 evidence gathering. I need you to pull 3 years of tax returns, yours and theirs if you can get them. Every bank statement, every communication. We're building a RICO case in reverse organized crime, but domestic. And Layer 3, the counterattack. She smiled, sharp as winter. Criminal charges for identity theft, civil lawsuit for damages, and my personal favorite IRS whistleblower complaint. They claimed you as a dependent. That's tax fraud. The IRS pays up to 30% of recovered funds to whistleblowers. My phone buzzed. Mom again. "Why aren't you answering Greg's in the hospital?" Amira glanced at it. "Document that. Harassment after assault." Speaking of which, she pulled out another form. "Restraining order. We're filing today." "Will that make them angry?" "Yes." "Make them sloppy?" "Absolutely." She opened her laptop, fingers flying across keys. "I'm checking court records." "Interesting. Greg Hartley has a history. 2 bankruptcies. 1 fraud investigation that didn't stick, 3 civil judgments for unpaid debts." "I didn't know about the fraud investigation." 2018 elderly neighbor in Aurora claimed Greg helped with her finances. $60,000 disappeared. Case dropped when she developed dementia. Amira's expression hardened. "But her daughter still lives there. Might be worth a conversation." The next 2 hours became a masterclass in financial self-defense. We filed police reports online, submitted fraud alerts to all 3 credit bureaus, locked down my social security number with E-Verify. Amira had connections at every institution, a network of professionals who'd seen this movie before. "Your employer," she said. "Northline Freight Systems. Good company. They've been supportive. My manager saw Mom's social media posts about the restaurant. Tell HR everything. Request identity theft protection services, security if needed. Colorado law requires employers to provide reasonable accommodation for domestic violence victims. This qualifies." My phone rang. Sloane's number. "Don't answer," Amira advised, "but save the voicemail." We listened to it together afterward. "You fucking bitch. Mom's crying. Greg's sick. And you're playing games. You owe us. You've always owed us. Pick up your fucking phone. Lovely girl, Amira said dryly. That's criminal threatening. Add it to the pile. By noon, we'd filed 17 different forms, opened 3 investigations, and started 2 legal proceedings. The courtroom clerk who processed our restraining order request looked at the evidence and expedited it for emergency hearing. One more thing, Amira said as I prepared to leave. The auto title refinancing attempt, that's federal wire fraud across state lines. FBI territory. FBI. White Collar Crime Division loves slam dunks. Family member with documented history of fraud attempts to steal a vehicle using forged documents and electronic submission. That's 5 to 7 years federal time. My phone had 32 missed calls. The family group chat I'd muted was apparently exploding. Amira noticed my expression. They're realizing the tap is off. Expect escalation dramatic health crises, suicide threats, family flying monkeys, maybe even vandalism. Document everything. Record if Colorado's one-party consent allows. Get cameras for your apartment. Already ordered them. Good. Now, about the elderly neighbor Margaret Simmons. Her daughter Jennifer still lives in Aurora. Here's her LinkedIn. She showed me the screen. Retired nurse, active in elder abuse prevention. Might be very interested to know Greg's still at it. I stood to leave, then turned back. How does this end? That depends. How far are you willing to go? All the way. Then it ends with Greg in federal prison, your mother bankrupt, your sister learning consequences exist, and you recovering every penny plus damages. Or, she paused. They settle quietly, sign agreements never to contact you again, and you disappear from their lives forever. No settlement. I want the first option. Amira smiled, the kind that made opposing lawyers nervous. Then let's make sure they never forget the price of that slap. Walking back to my car, I saw the mountains clear against the October sky. My phone buzzed again, HR, confirming a meeting at 2 o'clock to discuss security measures and identity protection services. The good daughter was dead. The risk analyst had taken her place, and she was very, very good at her job. Monday morning, 8:15 a.m. I was reviewing freight risk assessments when the receptionist's voice crackled through the intercom. Harper, there's a situation in the lobby. I pulled up the security feed on my desktop. There was Valerie, in full performance mode, designer bag swinging, voice pitched to carry through the building's marble atrium. Greg stood beside her, and behind them, a cousin I hadn't seen in 3 years, filming with his phone. My daughter works here, Valerie shrieked at security. Harper Quinn. She's keeping her family from seeing her. What kind of company supports child abandonment? Building security had already surrounded them, but the damage was done. Every Northline employee crossing the lobby slowed to watch. Someone from accounting was definitely recording. My manager, Patricia, appeared in my doorway. Conference room B, now. HR was already assembled. Patricia, the security chief, and legal. They'd pulled up Valerie's Facebook, where she'd posted photos of my luxury office building while her family suffers. The comments section was a masterpiece of manufactured outrage. Relatives I'd never met were calling me heartless. High school acquaintances were sharing it. We've seen the restaurant video, Patricia said quietly. The one where you were assaulted. It's gone viral on TikTok, 500,000 views. My stomach dropped. I didn't know. Someone tagged Northline. Risk analyst gets slapped for credit card declining at family dinner. The comments are divided. She pulled up her tablet. But more importantly, we take employee safety seriously. What do you need? By noon, Northline had assigned me a security escort, remote work privileges, and access to the company's identity theft protection service. They'd also issued a formal trespass warning to my family and started legal proceedings for harassment. The restraining order hearing was set for Thursday. Until then, I was staying at a corporate apartment downtown, one with a doorman and security cameras. That evening, I met Jennifer Simmons at a coffee shop in Aurora. Mom never had dementia, she said immediately. That's what Greg told people after we dropped the case. She was sharp until the day she died, just heartbroken that someone she trusted could do that to her. Jennifer had boxes of documentation in her car, canceled checks with forged signatures, powers of attorney Mom never signed, credit cards Mom never knew existed. $63,400, Jennifer said. That's what he stole. Mom was too embarrassed to pursue it, thought people would think she was senile. But I kept everything. Would you testify? I've been waiting 5 years for someone to ask. We spent 2 hours documenting patterns. Greg's MO was consistent befriend lonely older women or overwhelmed single mothers, offer to help with finances, systematically drain them while maintaining the appearance of care. Jennifer had found 2 other victims through elder abuse forums. Martha Hendricks in Littleton, $40,000. Dorothy Yuan in Lakewood, $80,000. Dorothy's in a nursing home now. Sold her house to cover the debts Greg created. My phone buzzed. Instagram DM from Sloan. You jealous bitch. Just because I'm everything you're not, young, pretty, wanted. No wonder you're alone. Who'd want a cold calculator who charges her family interest on love? I screenshotted it, added it to the harassment file. Wednesday brought escalation. Greg tried entering my apartment building at 6:45 a.m., told the doorman he was my father with a medical emergency. When that failed, he called my office 47 times until Northline blocked the number. Valerie posted a sob story about her daughter who abandoned her sick husband. Greg had apparently developed a heart condition overnight. The relatives emerged like roaches. Cousins I'd seen once at Christmas messaged about family loyalty. An aunt in Nebraska called me satanic. My high school best friend reached out to say my mom had contacted her, crying about my mental breakdown. But something interesting happened too. The restaurant video kept spreading, and the narrative split. Service industry workers recognized the setup, the bad seat, the group ordering, the practiced slide of the check. Risk analysts and accountants did the math on family financial abuse. Abuse survivors saw the pattern clear as day. A Reddit thread titled, "Woman Gets Slapped for Declined Card. Turns out family stole her identity," hit the front page. Someone had enhanced the audio. You could hear Sloane's laugh, clear as crystal, finally. By Thursday morning, 3 things had happened. The IRS had opened an investigation into Greg and Valerie's tax filings. The Elder Abuse Unit had officially reopened Margaret Simmons' case. The auto loan company had filed their own charges for attempted fraud. My phone rang. Unknown. Colorado number. Don't hang up. Sloane's voice, but different. Scared. Mom doesn't know I'm calling. You have 30 seconds. Greg's freaking out. He got a letter about some old lady's money. Mom's been crying all day. They're saying you're trying to destroy us. 20 seconds. Her voice cracked. Mom knew. About the credit cards. She helped him plan it. Said you owed us for all the years of being perfect, making us look bad. Time's up. Wait, I'll testify. If you help me with college. Real help. Not money. I hung up. Then forwarded the recording to Amira. Colorado's one-party consent law was about to become very useful. The restraining order hearing was in 18 hours. Greg and Valerie didn't know about Jennifer, Martha, or Dorothy yet. They didn't know Sloane had called. They didn't know the IRS was already pulling their returns. They thought this was still about money. They were about to learn it was about justice. And justice, unlike family, didn't accept IOUs. The conference room at Delgado and Associates had become my war room. 3 whiteboards covered in timelines, flowcharts showing money movements, photographs of evidence. Amira called it the most comprehensive domestic financial abuse case she'd seen in 30 years. 3-pronged attack, she announced that Friday morning. Civil, criminal, and federal. They wanted to play Let's Play. The civil lawsuit was straightforward recovery of $121, $746 in documented transfers, plus damages for identity theft, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and battery. Colorado law allowed for treble damages in cases of theft by deception. We were asking for $365, $238. Conservative, Amira noted. Judges like conservative. The criminal charges were building themselves. The DA's office had taken special interest after seeing Jennifer Simmons' evidence. Elder financial abuse, identity theft, wire fraud, tax evasion. Greg was looking at 15 to 20 if convicted on all counts. Valerie faced conspiracy charges, pending Sloane's testimony. But the IRS case was the kill shot. Falsely claiming a dependent $2,000 fine per year, plus back taxes and penalties, the forensic accountant explained. But here's where it gets interesting. They claimed head of household status based on you being their dependent. That's additional fraud. And these cash deposits? He pointed to highlighted bank records. Structuring to avoid reporting requirements? That's federal. They'd been depositing my money in amounts just under $10,000 to avoid CTR requirements. Classic structuring, and the FBI loved structuring cases. Monday brought the restraining order hearing. Greg and Valerie showed up with a strip mall lawyer who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. We had Amira, 2 paralegals, and bankers' boxes of evidence. Your Honor, their lawyer began. This is simply a family disagreement about money. A family disagreement that resulted in battery, Judge Morrison interrupted, looking at the restaurant video playing on the courtroom monitor. The slap echoed through speakers. Sloane's finally followed. The judge granted a permanent restraining order 500 feet. No contact through third parties. Violation meant immediate arrest. Greg exploded. She owes us 12 years of taking care of her. Mr. Hartley. The judge cut him off. I've reviewed the evidence. The only thing Ms. Quinn owes you is a lawsuit, which, I see, she's already filed. Tuesday. I worked with the FBI agent assigned to the structuring case. Special Agent Martinez had the demeanor of someone who'd seen every scam but still found them personally offensive. Your stepfather isn't smart, she said, reviewing the deposits. He's just been lucky, until now. Wednesday arrived with unexpected allies. The restaurant server from that night reached out she'd kept her own video. Better angle, clearer audio. The manager offered their security footage and agreed to testify. 3 of Sloane's friends who'd been at the table contacted me through Instagram, disgusted by what they'd witnessed. We thought Sloane was cool, one messaged. We didn't know she was a monster. Thursday, the dam broke. Greg was arrested at 7:30 a.m. Federal agents at his door with warrants for wire fraud and elder abuse. Valerie watched from the window as they led him away in handcuffs. The news made the local CBS affiliate by noon. Denver man arrested in identity theft, elder abuse scheme. Jennifer Simmons gave an interview. Martha Hendricks came forward. Dorothy Yuan's son called from California, crying, thanking me for giving Mom justice even if she won't see it. The IRS moved faster than expected. Friday afternoon, they froze Greg and Valerie's accounts pending investigation. The house, my childhood home they'd refinanced 3 times, went into pre-foreclosure when they couldn't make the payment. Valerie's Facebook transformed from prayer warrior mother betrayed by daughter to anyone know a good lawyer urgent. That evening, Amira called with news that made me sit down. Sloane's been in my office for 3 hours. She brought everything: emails, texts, recordings of her parents planning this. Harper. She recorded them discussing the credit card fraud 2 weeks before it happened. Why? Insurance, she called it, in case they turned on her next. Smart girl, horrible family. The civil trial was set for next month. Criminal proceedings would take longer. But the immediate victory was tangible. Their accounts frozen. Greg in federal custody. Valerie served with enough papers to wallpaper her soon-to-be foreclosed house. My new apartment, a 1-bedroom in a building with actual security, felt like a fortress of peace. No one had this address. My phone stayed quiet unless I wanted it to ring. For the first time in 12 years, my bank balance was my own. I pulled up the ledger one final time, added a new column, recovery status. Margaret Simmons restitution filed. Martha Hendricks restitution filed. Dorothy Yuan restitution filed. Harper Quinn. In progress. The risk analyst in me calculated odds 90% chance of full recovery, 95% chance of Greg's conviction, 100% chance they'd never touch my life again. The daughter in me, whatever remained of her, felt nothing. That was the real victory. The coffee shop on 17th Street was neutral territory, public enough for safety, private enough for truth. Sloane sat across from me. Designer bag nowhere in sight. Acrylic nails replaced by bitten stubs. Without the Instagram filters and ring light. She looked exactly 18 young. Scared. And for the first time since she was 6, honest. "Why did you want to meet?" I asked. "Because I need to know something." She wrapped both hands around her coffee cup. "Why did you keep paying all those years? Why didn't you just stop?" "You were a child, and I was afraid of losing the only family I had." "Bullshit." The word came out sharp, but her eyes were filling. "You could have left. You had a job, a degree, a life. You stayed and paid because—" Why, I considered lying, then decided she'd had enough of those. "Because I thought if I gave enough, eventually you'd love me back." Classic eldest daughter syndrome, buying affection with achievement and cash. "That's fucking sad." "Yes." She pulled out her phone, scrolled through something. "Mom's been texting. Dad Greg, he's still in federal holding. She wants me to lie. Say you manipulated me, that I never saw them do anything wrong." "What did you tell her?" "Nothing yet." She showed me the screen, 47 unread messages from Valerie, each more desperate than the last. But I screenshot everything, like this one from 3 weeks ago. I read it. "Don't worry, baby. Harper's credit is our safety net. She owes us after all the years of making us feel poor." "There's more," Sloane continued, pulling out a tablet. "Recordings. Started doing it after my 16th birthday when they used my college fund for Greg's investment. Figured if they'd screw me, they'd screw anyone." She hit play. Greg's voice filled the space between us. "The beauty is, Harper won't even notice for weeks. By then, we'll have the cash advances spread across 3 accounts. Valerie, you handle the Macy's card, max it out on jewelry. We can return for cash." Valerie's voice, calculating. Should we wait until after the restaurant? The public embarrassment will keep her from thinking straight. Exactly. One good slap if she protests. Make her feel guilty. She'll fold like always. Sloane stopped the recording. 2 weeks before the party. Premeditated. Why record it? Because I'm not stupid. I knew eventually they'd run out of other people's money. I'd be next. She laughed bitterly. "You know Mom refinanced the house using my information. I'm 18 with a 520 credit score. You could file charges? I'm going to... Amira Ms. Delgado, she's helping me file separately. Identity theft, fraud, educational neglect. Did you know they claimed my college fund on taxes but never created one?" I didn't know that, but it didn't surprise me. "I got into CU Boulder," she continued. "Full academic scholarship nobody knows about because I applied behind their backs. 4.2 GPA, Honor Society, the whole thing. They never even asked about my grades." "That's impressive." "Don't." She held up a hand. "Don't be nice to me. I laughed when he hit you. I posted those Instagram stories calling you a bitter bitch. I took your money for 12 years and spit in your face. You were raised by wolves. The fact you're here means you're not one of them." She broke then, sobbing in a way that made other customers stare. I let her cry, remembering my own breakdown in a Northline bathroom stall 3 weeks ago. "I'll testify," she said finally, wiping her face with rough napkins. "Everything, the planning, the theft, the other victims they laughed about. Greg has a whole notebook of people he's working. I photographed every page. In exchange for nothing. I mean," she straightened. "I need help with FAFSA, finding housing, maybe understanding how credit repair works, but not money. Never money. I won't be them." I studied her face, looking for the con. Found only exhaustion and determination. "Okay, but understand if you testify, they'll disown you. Publicly. Viciously. They already have. Mom posted that I'm mentally ill, manipulated by you. The family believes her. I've got 3 cousins threatening me, an aunt calling me Judas." She pulled up Facebook. "Look, Valerie's latest post a photo of young Sloane with 'Pray for my daughter' led astray by jealousy and greed. Some people will do anything to destroy a loving family. The comments were a cesspool of enabling relatives and flying monkeys. There's something else, Sloane said. A safety deposit box. Greg doesn't know I know, but I followed him once. Bank of the West on Colorado Boulevard. Whatever's in there, he checks it monthly. How do you know this? Because I'm good at being invisible when I want to be. Learned from the best you. She met my eyes. We're alike, you know. Both of us watching, calculating, keeping records. Except you did it to survive. I did it for insurance. And now I do it for justice. And maybe, she hesitated, maybe for the 6-year-old who used to think her big sister hung the moon. Before Mom and Greg taught me to hate you for it. I made a decision. There's a victim advocate at the DA's office. She can help with housing, counseling, getting your life started clean. I'll make the introduction, but you do the work. Deal. She stood to leave, then turned back. Harper. That night at the restaurant when you tipped 40% after being humiliated, that's when I knew you were never the weak one. They were. She left me with the recordings, the photos, enough evidence to bury Greg and Valerie twice over. But more importantly, she left me with something I hadn't expected, proof that even poisoned roots could grow something decent, if you were brave enough to break the soil. That evening, I sent Amira everything Sloane had provided. Her response was immediate. With this, they're done. Completely done. The DA agreed. With Sloane's testimony, we had conspiracy, premeditation, and a pattern of organized fraud spanning years and multiple victims. The text from an unknown number came at 11:47 p.m. You'll regret this, you ungrateful cunt. I forwarded it to Agent Martinez. Valerie had just violated the restraining order and added witness intimidation to her charges. By morning, she'd be under arrest too. The courtroom smelled like old wood and justice deferred. Judge Patricia Huang presided, a former prosecutor with no patience for financial predators. The gallery was packed relatives who'd chosen sides, Jennifer Simmons and the other victims, reporters who'd followed the story from restaurant slap to federal case. Greg sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, his silver fox charm replaced by gray roots and desperation. Valerie, out on bail, wore a black dress like she was already in mourning. Their court-appointed attorney looked resigned to losing. The people call Sloane Hartley. My sister, half-sister, former sister. Whatever she was now walked to the stand in a simple navy suit I'd helped her pick. No designer labels, no false eyelashes. Just an 18-year-old girl about to burn down the only life she'd known. State your relationship to the defendants. Greg Hartley is my stepfather. Valerie Hartley is my mother. The prosecutor, ADA James Reeves, clicked his laptop. The first recording played through courtroom speakers, Greg and Valerie planning the credit card fraud. The gallery stirred. A relative gasped. When was this recorded? October 3rd, 2 weeks before the family party. More recordings. Greg laughing about Harper's savior complex. Valerie calculating how much they could extract before I noticed. Plans to claim me as a dependent. Forge my signature. Drain my accounts. Did you witness the assault at Copper and Ivy restaurant? Yes. Describe what happened. Sloane's voice stayed steady. Harper's card was declined because Greg had drained it with cash advances. When she tried to explain, Greg stood up and slapped her across the face, hard enough that her glasses flew off. What did you do? Her voice cracked slightly. I laughed and said, finally. Why? Because I'd been trained to see Harper as the enemy, the one who made us look poor by having money, the one who thought she was better than us by being responsible. She looked directly at me. I was wrong. The defense attorney tried to paint Sloane as a confused teenager, manipulated by me. She destroyed him with receipts literally. Screenshots of Valerie coaching her to lie, Greg teaching her to hate me, years of programming exposed in family group chats. Then came the evidence that made even Judge Huang's poker face slip. What's in these photographs? Reeves asked. Greg's notebook. He called it his prospect list. Names, addresses, financial information, and vulnerability assessments of elderly neighbors and single mothers he planned to target. 43 names, 12 already marked as completed with dollar amounts. Margaret Simmons, $63,400. Dorothy Yuan, $80,000. Martha Hendricks, $40,000. 9 others I hadn't known about. The FBI agent testified next. Wire fraud, structuring, tax evasion, interstate commerce violations. Mr. Hartley ran what we call a family fraud enterprise, using his stepdaughter Harper Quinn as the primary funding source while cultivating additional victims. Jennifer Simmons took the stand, voice shaking but determined. He told my mother he was helping with her finances. She trusted him because he seemed like family. By the time we realized what happened, she'd lost everything. The parade of victims continued, each story the same pattern charm: trust, systematic theft, gaslighting when questioned. Then the prosecutor called me. I walked to the stand carrying my laptop and the ledger. Reeves had me detail every payment, every manipulation, every escalation. The gallery saw the spreadsheet projected on screen 12 years. $121, $746 each entry annotated with the lie that extracted it. Why did you continue giving them money? Complex trauma bonding, classic financial abuse pattern. They conditioned me from age 22 to believe my only value was monetary. Every boundary I set was met with escalation illness, emergency, guilt. What changed? They hit me, in public, then laughed. I looked at Greg. Physical violence was the line they couldn't uncross. The defense attorney stood for cross-examination. Ms. Quinn, you make $95,000 a year, correct? $98,000 now. You could afford these gifts to your family. Gifts aren't stolen. They didn't ask, they took. Using my SSN, forged signatures, and manufactured emergencies. You're angry about supporting your family. I'm angry about fraud. There's a difference between helping family and being robbed by them. One involves consent. He tried more angles. I had risk assessments for each one. 20 years of analyzing patterns made me unshakable. The IRS agent testified about tax fraud. Greg had claimed me as a dependent. Sloane's college fund as education expenses, and cash deposits as gifts that were actually structured to avoid reporting. Conservative estimate of tax owed $47,000 in back taxes, $23,000 in penalties, potential criminal fines up to $250,000. Valerie sobbed theatrically. Greg stared at me with naked hate. Judge Huang called recess. In the hallway, Amira smiled. They're done. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Guilty. Identity theft, 5 counts. Guilty. Elder abuse, 3 counts. Guilty. Wire fraud, 8 counts. Guilty. Tax evasion, 2 counts. Guilty. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Greg got 15 years federal, eligible for parole in 10. The courtroom erupted when the sentence was read. Valerie, convicted only of conspiracy and tax fraud, got 3 years suspended, 5 years probation, and restitution orders that would follow her to the grave. The civil judgment came down the same day, $365, $238 in damages, liens on all assets, wage garnishment until paid. But the moment that mattered came as they led Greg away. He turned to me, snarling, "You destroyed your family." "No," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I collected a debt, with interest." The courtroom cleared. Sloane found me outside, mascara streaking despite her promise not to cry. "Now what?" she asked. "Now you build a life without them, and I continue mine the same way." "What about forgiveness?" "That's not my department. I'm in risk assessment and debt collection." She laughed through tears. "Think we'll ever be sisters again?" "We never were." "But maybe someday we can be friends." The evening air was sharp against my face as I stood outside my aunt's house, watching through the window as the family gathered for what they called a support party for Valerie and Sloane. They'd chosen this night thinking I wouldn't dare show up, not after the restraining order, not after the trial, not after everything. They were right. I wasn't going inside. Deputy Marshal Kevin Chin stood beside me, hand resting on his radio. Behind us, the asset forfeiture team waited in 3 black SUVs. Amira had worked her legal magic one final time. The civil judgment allowed immediate seizure of assets. And we'd gotten the order signed at 4:30 p.m. this afternoon. You sure about this timing? Chin asked. They're all here, all the enablers, all the flying monkeys who called me Satan for protecting myself. Let them watch. Through the window, I could see Valerie holding court, wine glass in hand despite her financial ruin. Greg wasn't there. Federal prison didn't allow party leave, but his brother was. The cousins who'd threatened me, the aunt who'd called me Judas, even Sloane, keeping her cover until the last possible moment. At exactly 7:30 p.m., I nodded to Chin. He spoke into his radio. Execute. The forfeiture team moved in formation. The locksmith went straight to the house's smart lock. We had the legal right to secure the property pending sheriff's sale. 2 officers began photographing vehicles in the driveway. VIN numbers for the seizure list. Another team headed for the garage where Greg kept his collection watches, electronics, anything purchased with stolen funds. I walked to the front door as it swung open, Valerie's face morphing from confusion to rage to fear in 3 seconds flat. You can't, the restraining order doesn't apply to court-ordered asset seizure, Chin informed her. Ms. Quinn is here as the judgment creditor to identify recoverable assets. The party had gone silent. 20 relatives watched as officers began cataloging everything: the flat-screen TV, the leather furniture, jewelry Valerie wore that matched purchases on my credit cards. Ma'am, I need you to remove those earrings, an officer told Valerie. They're listed in the seizure order. These were a gift from my husband, purchased with fraud proceeds. Remove them or I will. Sloane appeared in the doorway, playing her part perfectly. Harper, how could you do this in front of everyone? I looked at her, saw the tiny nod she gave me. The same way you all watched him hit me, publicly. The safe in Greg's office opened with the combination Sloane had provided. Inside cash, gold coins, bonds all purchased with money traced back to his victims, the notebook with his prospect list, and something unexpected: my grandmother's jewelry. Pieces Mom had claimed were lost in a move. That's family jewelry, Valerie screeched. Yes, I said quietly. My family. My grandmother. My inheritance you stole. The crowd was filming now, phones out, probably streaming live. Good. Let the world see what accountability looked like. Chen announced the total, approximately $200,000 in recoverable assets. The house will be auctioned next month. Vehicles will be sold at police auction. All proceeds go to victims' restitution, starting with Ms. Quinn. My cousin Brad, the one who'd called me a cold bitch on Facebook, stepped forward. You're really going to take everything from your own mother? I'm collecting a legal judgment. If you're concerned about family helping family, her rent is due on the 1st. You could start there. Nobody volunteered. As the last box was loaded, Valerie made one final attempt. I'm your mother. I gave you life. No, you gave birth to me. Then you spent 34 years making me pay for it. Consider us even. I turned to leave, then stopped at the door for my final words, the ones I'd rehearsed for weeks. You taught me everything I know about family, that it's transactional, that love has a price tag, that loyalty can be bought and sold. I looked at each relative in turn. So, thank you for the education. I turned out to be an excellent student. The door closed on their shocked faces. In the driveway, Sloane caught up to me, dropping her act immediately. That was beautiful, she whispered. Did you see Aunt Patricia's face? Focus on your future, not their past. She nodded, heading back inside to maintain her cover until her dorm lease started next week. We'd never be family, but we'd become something more valuable: allies who chose each other. I got in my car, watching in the rearview mirror as the family scattered, some following the asset trucks, others comforting Valerie, most just standing there realizing the Bank of Harper had been permanently closed and liquidated. The radio played something forgettable as I drove toward downtown, toward my secure apartment, toward a life where my money was mine and my boundaries were walls. Behind me, the mountains caught the last light of day. Ahead, Denver sparkled with promise. I turned my back and walked away. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts below. Your own experiences and perspectives mean everything to me.